Dear students, in this session I am going to deal with page number 26 of our module 2. In the previous class, we were talking about the different articles of faith and what Brooks talks about some persistent misunderstandings and objections. So from the next paragraph onwards, he is talking about certain misunderstandings and objections regarding the author and the reader. In the first paragraph, he is talking about author. What is the role of an author in a work of art? Generally, when teachers in the graduate level, when they teach a poem to the students, first they will be giving you an introduction about the poet, the author, about his biography, about his lifespan, about the works that he had written, about his general aims of writing, and things like that. So, we all teach literature in connection with the author who has written that work of art. So here, Cleanth Brooks is trying to make us understand the position of the author according to the formalistic understanding of literary criticism. What does he say? Let us see. In the first place, to make the poem or the novel the central concern of criticism has appeared to mean cutting it loose from its author and from his life as a man, with his own particular hopes, fears, interests, conflicts, etc. So in the first place, the formalists, they are trying to cut the author from his work of art. So you just separate the author from the poem or the novel that he has written. Don't ever think that the poet says so or the author says so, and in the opinion of the author, such and such things are there likewise. You just separate author from the text. So that is a very tough concern. We will see what Brooks says again. A criticism so limited may seem bloodless and hollow. It will seem so to the typical professor of literature in the graduate school, where the study of literature is still primarily a study of the ideas and personality of the author as revealed in his letters, his diaries, and the recorded conversations of his friends. So such a separation, some people, they cannot digest it. Because how can we separate an author from the work that he has written? But Brooks says we have to do that. It will certainly seem so to literary gossip columnists who purvey literary chit-chat. It may also seem so to the young poet or novelist beset with his own problems of composition and with his struggles to find a subject and a style and to get a hearing for himself. Brooks is pointing to three sections of people here. First, he is talking about the professor of literature in the graduate school. So to the professor, it will be very difficult because if he separates the author from the novel or the poem that he has to teach, how can he relate that to his students? To the professor, it will be a very strenuous task. What? Separating the author from the text. The next type of person is the literary gossip columnist, the persons who write articles of a work of art. Okay, a columnist, a journalist. For him, just forgetting the association of the author from a text, it will be a very different or difficult task for him to write a column about that particular work. Next, he is talking about a young poet or novelist. A budding poet or a budding novelist, he will be beset with his own problems of composition and with his struggles to find a subject and a style and to get a hearing for himself. Suppose I am a budding novelist. I had just started writing novels. What would be my aim? I would like to get published. I would like to get acknowledged by the society. If someone comes and separates me from my work, then what is my position? I will be alarmed out of it. Okay. So he is focusing on the different anxieties in the different sections of people with regard to that particular idea of cutting the author from the work that he has written. But that particular thing is the primary concern of any formalist critic. In the second place, now, again in the next paragraph, he is talking about the reader. So in the previous paragraph, we have already discussed about the author and what is his association with his text. In the next paragraph, Brooks is going to talk about the role of the reader. In the second place, to emphasize the work seems to involve severing it from those who actually read it. And this severance may seem drastic and therefore disastrous. Underline those sentences. It's very important. Next, we are going to sever. What is the meaning of sever? Again, take page number 35. There you will get the meaning of sever, to cut out or to separate. We are now going to separate a work of art from its readers also. This severance may seem drastic and therefore disastrous. For us, it may seem very disastrous. How can you sever the reader? Why? Most of the time, a work of art is written aiming at a particular audience or aiming at a particular reader. Okay. So if we cut off that audience from that literary work, then what is the relevance of that work? For whom that work has been written? That question remains there. So that is why it is told it may seem to you as drastic and disastrous. After all, literature is written to be read. Wordsworth's poet was a man speaking to men. So here there is a reference to Wordsworth. I hope all of you know who is Wordsworth. William Wordsworth, the Romantic poet. A poet belonging to the Romantic period of English literature. And here is a reference to one of his works. What is it? The preface to the lyrical ballads. What do you understand by lyrical ballads? Lyrical ballads is a text. It's a collection of poems. And it was a combined work. The lyrical ballads was written by William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge, the two Romantic writers. And for that poetic collection, there is a preface written, and that preface is written by William Wordsworth. And in that preface, William Wordsworth is talking to us about the role of a poet. Who is a poet? He is also talking about the style of writing poetry during the Romantic period. And there he speaks. You can go through the notes. Note number 3. In his preface to the lyrical ballads, Wordsworth regards the poet as a man speaking to man, but with a higher sensibility. So in this paragraph, we are talking about the reader. The author is a man, the poet is a man speaking to other men, after all, and with a higher sensibility. That is what Wordsworth talks about a poet and the vocation of a poet in the preface to the lyrical ballads. So how can we ignore a reader? In the next sentence, there is another reference. What is it? In each Sunday Times, Mr. J. Donald Adams points out that the hungry sheep look up and are not fed, and less strenuous moralists than Mr. Adams are bound to feel a proper revulsion against mere aestheticism. So here there is another reference. As we go on with our text, you see, this is how we understand our text. In each and every paragraph, there will be references to different authors or the text written by different authors. For your understanding, a note will be given in the bottom of each page regarding that particular author and the work that is referred to here. Okay, so that is why I am going through the notes in the bottom of the page. Here we are talking about Mr. J. Donald Adams. Who is Adams? An American author famous for works like The Shape of the Books to Come and The Magic and Mystery of Words. So he is an American author, and he makes a reference to Lycidas. Lycidas is written by John Milton. Okay, Lycidas is a poem, a very beautiful poem, a long poem. It is an elegy. Elegy is a poem written to mourn the death of a person. And here, an incident that is referred to in the poem, Lycidas, is referred to. And what is it? So note number 5. An allusion to John Milton's elegy, Lycidas. There, Milton angrily tackles the unfit shepherds of anti-Protestantism, and his pastoral becomes far more harsh and realistic. Then the lines from Lycidas are given. The hungry sheep look up and are not fed, but swollen with wind, and the rank mist they drove, wrought inwardly, and foul contagion spread. So these are the sentences, or these are the lines from the poem Lycidas. So what is the topic discussed there in these lines? Here is a reference made to the Catholic Church, the priests and the ecclesiastical people. They are termed as the shepherds, those who lead the sheep. Sheep is the church, the Catholic people. And Milton is making a reference to the corruption that we can see among the shepherds, or among the priests, or among the leaders of the Catholic Church. And the sheep, they are helpless. Okay, they are all the time in the clutches of this corruption of this clergy, or the priests, or the dominant group in the Catholic Church. So, in each Sunday Times, Mr. J. Donald Adams points out that the hungry sheep look up and are not fed. So, hungry sheep is here refers to the helpless audience or the readers. Okay, they are not fed properly. They are always hungry. and less strenuous moralists than Mr. Adams are bound to feel a proper revulsion against mere aestheticism. So, our Adams, Donald Adams, he is not able to give us a proper moral understanding of what is there stated in a work of art. Moreover, if we neglect the audience which reads the work, including that for which it was presumably written, the literary historian is prompt to point out that the kind of audience that Pope had did condition the kind of poetry that he wrote. So first in this paragraph we told something about Wordsworth. Wordsworth told that a poet is a person who speaks to other men. So how can we totally sever audience or the common people to whom the work of art is written? In the next example we saw Mr. J. Donald Adams talking about the hungry sheep who are not fed. They are not given a proper direction. Likewise, the audience, if they are neglected, how can we relate a work of art with the desired intention of writing it? As the third example he is giving, he is referring to another author, that is Alexander Pope. So in page number 27, in the bottom, you will get a note on Alexander Pope. Who was Alexander Pope? Alexander Pope was the greatest neoclassical poet, best known for satires like The Rape of the Lock, An Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot, The Dunciad, etc. So Alexander Pope is a neoclassical writer, a writer belonging to another period of English literature, that is neoclassical period. And he is a person who writes satires. Satire, what is a satire? A satire, it mocks at the follies and foibles of a particular period of time. The follies that people make in their manners. It mocks at that, a satire. So Alexander Pope, in his satires, he had mocked at the people living during the neoclassical period. So if we sever that audience from that text of Alexander Pope, then what is the relevance of that text altogether? Okay. So these are the problems that arise when we think in the line of cutting the reader from the text. I repeat that sentence again. See whether you can understand. Moreover, if we neglect the audience which reads the work, including that for which it was presumably written. It was presumably written. Okay, the work was written for a particular author. The literary historian is prompt to point out that kind of audience that Pope had did condition the kind of poetry that he wrote. The poetry that he wrote was conditioned or aimed at for that particular audience. And if we try to cut that audience from that work, then what will be the situation of, or what will be the condition of that work, or what will be the future of that work? The poem has its roots in history, past or present. Its place in the historical context simply cannot be ignored. So a poem, when it is written, it has its connections with past and present. It has its connections with its history, its period where it was written, or the previous periods with which a lot of associations it may make. Its place in the historical context simply cannot be ignored. So in this session, what I would like to tell you is about the role of the author and the role of the reader in the formalistic approach of literary criticism. Brooks is talking about cutting the author and also the reader from a work of art. You just separate the author from the work of art, the reader from the work of art, and just concentrate only on the work of art. Its form, its structure, the selection of words, the way it has been written, only that. With this, I will end this session. I will be continuing our lesson in the coming sessions. Thank you.